In this documentary, I'm going to set some things straight to you who wishes to know. The world we are living in today is completely out of control, and this is not by accident, but utterly planned and tailored this way by those who run the show. I don't think I have ever seen this any clearer than it is able to be seen today, late 2015. We are truly living under a new world order, in every sense of the word. And I'm not speaking about the Illuminati here, I'm talking about established governments from all around the world conforming as one, with the US establishment at the forefront, dictating other nations' interests and policies to the benefits of the top elite of this one world government. It won't be necessary for me to show to you some white paper where this is explicitly written in black and white, as this is clear to be seen everywhere you look lately, from the climate summit in Paris to the so-called coalition against ISIS, otherwise known as Daesh. And that's without mentioning all the laws and conventions which are being drawn up by lawmakers, from the TPP to the European Parliament's ever-increasing initiatives, which are things that are in effect on a global scale, not just your country of origin. So what does this mean for the general publics whose governments are surrendering all their sovereignty to this one world government project? To be honest, I can't even begin to answer all these questions, but I can and I will say the implications are on an unfathomable magnitude on an array of issues. I'm going to detail one of these issues, which I am involved, not by consent but by force, and that's my role in the program. If you didn't already know, the program is a joint intelligence operation conducted globally by Danish, US and British intelligence agencies. It was implemented in 2008. The program became live in 2009, and since then the intelligence agencies have expanded the scope of the operation exponentially, essentially turning the program into multiple operations, all with different and varying purposes with common goals. But one thing that does not differ is my role in all of these varying purposes of the program, which I'm now going to detail. Since the program became live, the intelligence agencies needed a pretext and justification for the operation, which is where my role came into play. As you already know, since the beginning I was immediately labelled as a pedophile and a snitch, which was the official narrative by the establishments, who used these accusations as the justification. In reality, this was the pretext for the intelligence agencies to initiate their live transmitting directly to much of the world's population through the phenomenon of 21st century technological capabilities. So much of their propagations has obviously had to be about me, or should I rather say the role which has been forced upon me, as I am no way, shape or form a pedophile or a snitch. Unfortunately, that doesn't really matter, because that is what the establishments have propagandized to millions of viewers and listeners around the world for years. So that is what I am to many people, despite this being a pretext, which I have proven to be a fact on many other occasions through my efforts and video documentaries, where I actually show official documentation from all the relevant authorities where these kind of records would be journalised if the accusations were to be true. Which is precisely why the establishments no longer have to pursue criminal charges against me for the accusations which they have accused me of for years, because it is now common knowledge that I have been set up as a patsy for justification purposes. Unfortunately, that doesn't matter either, because the establishments have consecutively erected many other narratives, and one of these other narratives is the terrorist accusations, where they unilaterally, every time there's a tragedy like a mass shooting or a terrorist attack, directly or indirectly accuse me of the same action. The principle is kind of like the guilt by association principle, but without any connections. And that is just one other way, and there are many more ways in which the intelligence agencies and the establishments continuously perpetuate their pretexts for having the program running and transmitting to much of the world's populations. Moreover, when they are not accusing me of criminal acts, they are just as extensively discrediting my efforts and me through various of kinds of campaigns, which is the next subject I'm going to detail. You see, it's not just the constant propaganda campaigns accusing me of this, that and the other, or all the other fabricated virtual movies depicting me in all sorts of compromising sexual acts or activities. However, it is the relentless attacks on me on a physiological level which are the most damning, as they are essentially incapacitating me through my own bodily functions by non-ionizing radiation exposure, which is causing me to have extremely negative biological effects. And these extremely negative biological effects are causing me to need to go to the toilet around 50 times a day to piss and shit, which is obviously extremely nasty, as no human body naturally needs to go to the toilet this many times a day, which puts me and my body under tremendous stresses, which is one of the reasons why they purposely affect me on this physiological level, and another reason so they can use this against me in their propaganda campaigns, where they actually blame my mental state for the physiological effects which they are systematically causing me through non-ionizing radiation exposure. It does not get more Orwellian than that, and I haven't even mentioned the mild sleep deprivation, which also occurs on a daily basis as they strategically rob me much of my sleep, either keeping me up for hours or waking me continuously through the night. This sleep deprivation tactic is very comparable to the well-known frequent flyer program, which is a tactic extensively used by US intelligence and militaries around the world at many of the infamous black sites. So many of my critics, which there are many, would undoubtedly raise the question, despite already knowing the answers. No, there is no reason for physical contact or even close vicinity, as the program is mainly conducted through technological means. The technological aspects of the program are undeniably the most secretive and guarded aspects of the program, making it extremely difficult for me to prove, as in court of law prove at least, which is the reason why my critics would raise this question before any other. You see, the technological capability of 21st century technology is around 30 years beyond what is made public in the private sector. That doesn't mean that the establishments and their intelligence agencies do not use technologies which have not yet officially been disclosed publicly in the private sector. The program is the prime example of this, as the establishments have and are using technology which is far beyond what they are disclosing. This is an important fact for those who truly think that the establishments are telling and informing you of what is really going on, specifically in regards to the program and the technology used in this operation. In addition to that, I suspect that they are using varying technologies, but nearly all rely on the same principles of electromagnetics, meaning that they are using signaling systems of different kinds to conduct and operate the program. So when they want to subject me to sleep deprivation as an example, they will induce me, as in my central nervous system, with a complex signal, which will carry the desired information. This can be sight, sound, smell, or any of the other 5 senses. By super heterodyning the complex signal into a signal or signals which can be understood by the central nervous system and brain as a human impulse or impulses, essentially tricking and manipulating the human organ into thinking that the signal is an organic impulse from one of the five senses. So they are directly communicating with one central nervous system and brain, cutting out the middleman, so to speak, as in you don't need to hear, or you don't need to be looking at something to have something projected in your mind as a mental picture. They are using these technological capabilities extremely intrusively to force negative and detrimental material like imagery and sounds upon me, especially when I want to sleep or when I am sleeping. They are essentially brainwashing me through sensory bombardments. And why this almost always occurs at this time of night is because one's senses are much more sensitive when you are not preoccupying your senses with something else that you are doing, which is the reason why their propaganda campaigns predominantly always run at this time when I am sleeping. This is one major aspect of their technological capabilities, which they use on a multitude of applications. So what does all this torturous behaviour have to do with me, someone might ask, which of course is a predictable question. I think it's safe to conclude that the establishments are not running the program for the sake of it, or purely for entertainment purposes. There must be some underlying reasons behind this global intelligence operation. You see, I believe that the establishments have authored the program with much more malicious intent, with specific objectives in mind, on a wide scope, not this individual basis which they are projecting to you through their propaganda. I say this because when I look back at all the things that have occurred since 2009, I can see how they have methodically worsened their campaigns in a multitude of ways, while my awareness of them and their capabilities have increased in concert, which naturally has led to me trying to resolve the very many problems that in most cases have been staged by the intelligence agencies through the use of proxies. And they have not staged the problems for the sake of it either. Rather, they have systematically created specific problems for me to solve, if you like, with that sinister intention in mind that even though I'm being wronged and going through the proper and relevant institutional safeguards, I'm not receiving the justice or the fairness that the situation should require of these safeguards, which are in place to protect individuals against wrongful doings by the government. They obviously know beforehand that these institutional safeguards are going to be useless, which is why they purposely propagandize all their actions and inactions, which in many cases constitutes gross violations of national and international law. They are not only propagandizing all of these setups, they are also framing it in their propaganda as we, in everybody, are doing one over on him, while they in reality are normalizing the eradication of institutional safeguards and rights. Therefore, the publics are gradually allowing more and more eradications of this sort on the premise of the establishment's propaganda. Hence, why they are broadcasting to as many people around the world as possible, using me as the boogeyman pretext in all their propaganda, in which all their actions are justified through. This is exactly why the program is self-perpetuating. You see, the longer this operation runs, the worse things are going to get, which thereby means the more illegalities and eradication of law, human rights and freedoms the establishments are going to be able to get away with through this process. It's very clear to see, if you look objectively at everything that has gone on They have established a process in which they can transmit whatever propaganda they wish to justify any measure or action that they wish to take, simply by fabricating a threat or a problem to their interests. To put things into perspective, I'm going to detail a couple of legal cases which I have had ongoing for the past year here in Denmark, which is also a reason why I haven't been more vocal than I have, as they would undoubtedly have used this against me in these cases, which would have put me in a worse off position, legally speaking. Now I at least can make a clear-cut case and even share details with you. November 2014, my landlord and the upstairs tenants were used as proxies against me in an eviction case, which they lost on the 19th of November 2014. In this case, my landlord, in concert with the Danish intelligence agency, PET, forged documents to support their claim in court. After winning the eviction case in court, I reported the document forgery to the Danish police. They immediately tried to cover up the case by denying me my civil liberties outright in a number of instances. The police denied me rights which are protected under the Danish Administration of Justice Act, and if violated can constitute violations of the criminal code. Which is why I reported all the involved police officers and prosecutors in this case to the Police Complaint Authority based on the violations of the Administration of Justice Act, by directly proving the violations to this authority, by providing material evidence of the violations, which consisted of video and sound recordings of the police interactions with me where these violations occurred. The police systematically distorted my statements in their reports to such an extent that my statements became useless and vague, essentially whitewashing my statements to fit the cover-up. The Administration of Justice Act, Section 751, specifically states that the interrogated person's statements in essence shall be reported, and particular important parts shall be reported in the words of the interrogated. This particular violation occurred on two separate occasions, and on the third occasion the police completely left out my whole statement in their report, like my statement was never given, which is not only a flagrant violation of Section 751, moreover the principles of the rule of law. These are just three separate violations, and they are by no means all the violations in my complaint to this authority, to whom I presented irrefutable evidence, which wasn't hard to do, since my statements can be heard word for word in the video and sound recordings, not to mention the police attempts to sway and intimidate me while they interrogated me. And even when having this kind of concrete evidence to support my claim, this so-called independent complaint authority, without a shadow of investigation, continued to cover up within 7 days of receiving my complaint with all its materials, which is a comprehensive case to go through in 7 days. I of course appealed this comical decision to the state's attorney, to whom I also put the program into context of this complaint, as the program is the only reason for this case at all involving. I actually wrote to the state's attorney that I, Stephen Bell, essentially am an enemy of my own state, which is the reason behind me receiving this kind of treatment and injustice from the authorities and beyond. And I, in this context, also invoked the European Conventions on Human Rights, Article 6. Both of these fundamental issues of this case and beyond, the state's attorney completely ignored without any comments or changes to the Police Complaint Authority's decision and reasoning, which alone constitutes a flagrant violation of Article 6, as the state's attorney, in this instance, is supposed to look and base their decision upon all the material which they have available in a case, and then give a fair and impartial decision. And if someone invokes the European Convention on Human Rights, in this case Article 6, the right to a fair trial, the state's attorney is supposed to investigate any such claim. And evidently, when they completely ignore such fundamental factors in an ongoing case, they are not independent or impartial, thereby violating my human rights in accordance with Article 6. This was just a brief overview of this case to show you the grounds for my claim of human rights violations committed by the police complaint authority, and finally the state's attorney. The next case I have had ongoing was a civil court case against the same landlord regarding defamation, because they did not only forge documents, they also argued on paper and in court that I was a threat to every other tenant in the building, which they claim was the reason why there wasn't more complaints from other tenants, as in the other tenants weren't willing to come forward with their complaints against me because they were scared of what I might do to them physically if they came forward. All of these accusations were not reasoned, nor did they argue that these accusations were actual fact. They simply smeared me to the court, and when I challenged them in court, they wouldn't give any reason whatsoever for the accusations. I suppose they had hoped that the intelligence agencies had more influence and control over me, so that I wouldn't challenge their false accusations and forged documents. And therefore I filed a case against my landlord on the 12th of February 2015 at the District Court of Esbjerg. The District Court registered the case as being a small claims case, which is an important factor, as defamation cases cannot be treated as a small claims case in accordance with the Danish Administration Act, Section 400, subsection 3, which I immediately addressed to the court after finding out. The court would not answer my letters regarding this already wrongful procedure. I had to repeatedly address the issue to the court before they finally gave me an extremely vague and now proven to be a lie explanation regarding the registration of the defamation case as a small claims case. Even after I had addressed the wrongful procedure of which my case was being handled, the court continued to proceed with the wrongful procedure. The reasons behind this came clear to see on the 14th of August 2015 under a meeting between me, my landlord's attorney and the court, where they as incooperatively, almost immediately, used the wrongful procedure as the pretext for giving me an order to seek legal counsel. Moreover, when I say cooperatively, it's because my landlord's attorney suggested to the court that I should be given an order to seek counsel, and the judge immediately followed through on the order, on the basis that the case was not a small claims case, the same exact issue which I had already addressed to the court on several occasions in writing, which of course I argued with no prevail, and when I asked the judge for a reason for the order, the judge wouldn't or couldn't give me a reason which was based upon me and my legal expertise. I was given 4 weeks to find a pro bono attorney, which is an impossible task which the judge, of course, was well aware of, hence why I was given the order in the first place. I same day wrote a request to the President of the District Court to change or to overrule the order to seek counsel. I also questioned the judge's impartiality. The President of the District Court changed my otherwise straightforward request regarding the order and the impartiality of the judge to be regarding the conduct of the judge. In this context, the President of the District Court informed me that it was not possible to change or to overrule the order to seek legal counsel. In addition to that, I have now found out that it is indeed possible to change an order to seek counsel. in accordance with the Administration of Justice Act, Section 222, which the President of the District Court in writing denied me, in concert with claiming that the judge was impartial, while she at the same time ruled favourably for the judge on the conduct complaint which I had never filed. Therefore, I had to continue my search to find a pro bono attorney, which is why I had to put an ad in the paper and telephone dozens of firms around the country with no prevail. However, under these circumstances, the court had to appoint me an attorney, which they did in accordance with the Administration of Justice Act, Section 259, subsection 3. The first attorney excused himself within a week before even seeing me. I spoke to the second attorney in person twice, and I immediately knew that this attorney which they had appointed me was completely under the control of the intelligence agencies. Not once did this attorney inform me of something I didn't know, and every step of the way he tried to sabotage and question my case against my landlord, essentially seeking out weak spots in my legal expertise and knowledge to undermine them. By trying to change my claims and arguments against my landlord, but because I wasn't going to allow this to happen, the attorney therefore went along to get along. Furthermore, he and I came to an agreement on the 21st of October 2015, where we agreed on how to proceed and that my claims and arguments were to be kept in order, except some minor changes to my fourth claim. On the 30th of October, I received the appointed attorney's rebuttal as agreed on. In this document, to my counterpart and the court, the appointed attorney has completely changed all of my claims from my court application from the 12th of February 2015. So my claims no longer are clear and effective, and instead are garbled and vague in this document. Furthermore, the arguments set forth by this attorney were useless and insufficient, in essence destroying my case as an act of sabotage through infiltration. The sabotaging of my case was so apparent that there is no doubt that this was done purposely as openly as possible, meaning the intelligence agencies responsible for this aspect of the program knew beforehand that I was not going to allow such blatant destruction of my case, which is why they were seeking my reaction through this overt sabotaging. First of all, I telephoned the attorney and told him straight that he had sabotaged my case and asked if he would represent my interests and me in this case, which he did not answer directly, and shortly after he hung up the phone on me. I therefore, on the 5th of November, wrote a request to the court to excuse the appointed attorney on the grounds that the appointed attorney was not representing my interests and me. I proved these facts to the court through this attorney's own documents, which he had written in this case, where the sabotaging undeniably is clear to be seen for anyone who looks objectively. In addition to that, I reminded the court of my status and the situation regarding the program, and how that influences others, attorney or not, to serve the interests of the state and thereby my counterpart instead of my interests and me, and how these complications were well established facts which the court did not only know but has known for years. In this context, I appealed to the court that they needed to either prohibit any such flagrant disregard for the rule of law, or that they should let me represent myself, which I am more than capable of. I therefore also sent my own rebuttal to the District Court of Esbjerg. My rebuttal is truly written to serve my interests and me in a thorough and professional way, which my counterpart could reply to straight away without any delay or need to appoint a new attorney, as the deadline of the 14th of November 2015 for the rebuttal had been met. This way I unequivocally gave the court a clear demonstration of my capableness, and even a chance for the court to rectify their injustices towards me. Still, the court met neither of my two requests of action. They in fact completely ignored all factors which prove the appointed attorney's partiality and deliberate sabotaging of my case, leaving no doubt of the court's own participation in the obstruction of justice that has taken place in this case. My claim that the District Court of Esbjerg have actively participated in the obstruction of justice is further proven in the court record from the 6th of November, where the court's denial of my request from the 5th is written, because in court records the court is legally obligated in accordance with the Administration of Justice Act, section 35, subsection 2, to reference all documents and annexes which have accessed the case. The court in this instant misconstrued the court record from the 6th of November in such a way that it appears in the official record that I had only based my request to excuse the appointed attorney on a phone call recording, leaving out all other documents where the sabotaging actually could be seen. This included the appointed attorney's rebuttal and his earlier letter and more. So the court here cut out all traces to the evidence which supported my accusation against the appointed attorney. And that's without mentioning failing to reference the rebuttal which I had written on my own behalf. So the court are actively hiding all beneficial facts to my interests in this official court record. Naturally, I could not allow such flagrant injustice from not only the court itself, but also the intelligence agencies' direct involvement through this appointed attorney, who completely overtly sabotaged my case with the court's backing. Therefore, I, on 10th of November, took action by requesting to the court to rule on their decision from the 6th of November to keep the appointed attorney on, in accordance with the Administration of Justice Act, section 217. I requested the ruling because rulings have to be reasoned by law, which decisions do not. Secondly, I requested to the court that the court record from the 6th of November be changed to include all documents and annexes that I had sent in conjunction with my request to excuse the appointed attorney. This request I wrote in accordance with the Administration of Justice Act, section 221, subsection 2, see section 35, subsection 2. Furthermore, on the 13th of November, I, the plaintiff, withdrew the case against my landlord in accordance with the Administration of Justice Act, section 359, which is exactly the reaction the intelligence agencies, as I mentioned previously, were seeking with the purposely overt sabotage. And that should have been that, because there are no claims against me from my counterpart. Therefore, I alone decided whether or not to proceed with the case in accordance with law. Apparently, it wasn't enough for the intelligence agencies and the establishments that they had forced me to withdraw a strong, solid case against my landlord, who they, the year before, had used as a proxy to have me evicted. No, they wanted to continue the case despite I, the plaintiff, had dropped the case. I suspect governmental forces here in Denmark have ordered the court not to recognise my withdrawal of the case. Furthermore, my two requests from the 10th of November, which essentially would uncover and prove the court's own participation. So all parties except me, the plaintiff, continued the case, even though I by law had dropped the case against my landlord in a civil suit. They did this by continuing the case without me in essence. The appointed attorney sent in the sabotage rebuttal to my counterpart and the court on the 16th of November, which was 3 days after the deadline, because the 14th was a Saturday. Therefore the deadline was at 1500 hours on the 13th at the very latest, which is common knowledge of practice for any attorney. Despite this, my counterpart responded to the rebuttal, of course, on the 19th. This document was after all written to serve the interests of my counterpart and not mine. I had to telephone the District Court of Esbjerg on the 19th to ask why my case was still ongoing, despite I had in writing withdrawn the case. This is when the court comically acted as if they hadn't received my letter from the 13th of November. The court eventually had to act as if they just found it while speaking to me, and thereafter they still gave the other parties 7 days to comment on the matter. This is because they essentially want to portray it as if the decision to withdraw the case wasn't mine personally. Because don't forget, they had appointed me an attorney whose sole purpose was to sabotage and control me and my case, which I have circumvented by knowing the laws and my rights to such an extent that I have preemptively ceased the sabotaging of my case by the intelligence agencies and the Danish government. On the 27th of November, the court had to withdraw the case because there is no legal precedence for the court to continue the proceedings against the will of a plaintiff in a civil court case. As previously, the court had to take the credit, if you will, from my preemptive actions against the sabotaging of my case. This they did by crediting the appointed attorney as the author of my letter to the court from the 13th of November in the official court record, while at the same time denying to meet my first request from the 10th of November, which was the request to the court to rule on their decision from the 6th to keep the appointed attorney on, which demonstrates another example of the court's active role in the obstruction of justice in this case, because there is no reason for the court not to meet such a request from a plaintiff. The only reason for not meeting such a request is that the decision to keep the appointed attorney on was wrongful and infringing on my legal certainties and human rights, which the court would have a very hard time to explain in their ruling, hence why they didn't want to rule on the decision. And this is without mentioning the second request in my letter from the 10th of November, which was the request to reference all documents and annexes which I had sent in conjunction with my request to excuse the appointed attorney, which the court failed to reference in the court record from the 6th of November. This request the court completely failed to respond to, even though the requests are situated in the same letter from the 10th of November, which once again gives a clear demonstration of the district court's flagrant disregard for my legal certainties and human rights. So now you have an idea of the scale of the corruption which I'm faced. You also get the idea that they purposely make their wrongful actions and injustices as blatant as possible, because they want, or should I say, they seek a reaction in the same kind of outrageous manner, as in they want me to react inappropriately and or illegally on the same kind of level. So they would then use those provoked reactions against me as the justification to either imprison me, institutionalise me, or even to have me deemed incompetent, which is one of their main objectives. I have now given insight into 2 cases, one criminal and one civil, both cases sharing common factors. Those are foremost that no matter the authority, be it the police, the prosecutors, state's attorneys, or judges and courts, they will all actively prevent any attempt from me to seek justice through the legal system or the institutional safeguards. Moreover, they will instead participate in the injustices which I am being subjected by the establishment's intelligence agencies via the program, meaning all relevant authorities in this state and beyond will prevent me from ever receiving justice or remedies for the problems and injustices which they in reality are allowing and or responsible for. Hence why all their campaigns against me are unilateral and extrajudicial, so I can't defend myself equally with the laws and principles of the rule of law, which again is part of the program's objectives to normalise the eradications of rights and the rule of law for those who the establishments arbitrarily deem unworthy or simply a nuisance to their interests. If you look objectively at all the varying campaigns which have been waged in the programme, almost all have been designed to stir hatred and conflict as the means to which the establishment can use those provoked emotions of the publics as the fuel for the public's involvement in the programme. Through this method, the establishments are fabricating the grounds for people's willful participation on the premise that I, Stephen Bell, is this great evil which everyone must assist in degrading and destroying. This is what the establishments are propagandizing through their campaigns and schemes, while I in person and in reality am exiled to live in complete isolation within society, imprisoned to my own home, with no social or physical contact to anyone. This severe level of isolation I have been subjected to since the end of 2012. I have absolutely no life, which thereby equates to I don't do anything other than try to resolve the predicament of my role in the programme through efforts like those I have demonstrated in this documentary, which is the factor that makes it extremely easy for the establishments because there is no one to challenge their propagandized narratives, which is another reason why they purposely, as a principle, keep me in complete darkness for strategic and legal reasons, and my peers have absolutely no way in the world of knowing whether or not all these propagandized narratives have any merits, or if they are fabricated by the establishments themselves and then broadcasted. They are capitalizing greatly on these factors because they can and are with impunity fabricating whatever accusation or claim against me at will, from the outrageous and deprived claims of sexual acts to the heinous accusations of paedophilia to the absurd accusations of terroristic affiliations. All and more are accusations and claims which the establishments are accusing me of through their visual and auditory propaganda, while simultaneously the same establishments and their intelligence agencies are directly responsible for the broadcasting of this propagandistic material. In addition to that, they have never once charged me for anything or even questioned me in regard to any of their accusations, and still somehow they manage year after year to continue their manifestly unfounded accusations as the pretexts and the justification for the existence of this intelligence operation known as the program. Yes, I'm without hesitance saying that the Danish, American and English establishments are responsible for creating the material which they are accusing me of in their propaganda. Why it is so paramount for these establishments that you, the millions of viewers and listeners of the program, are to believe unequivocally their narratives, in which I'm portrayed as this great evil which they actually equate to ISIS, or otherwise known as Daesh, you know, the Salafist jihadist who behead and set people on fire. Therefore, it is more than safe to make the conclusion that these establishments have in effect declared Cold War on me. I do not have the same liberties as my fellow citizens. I have been deprived of my human rights. I have lost many of my legal certainties. The state of my country, in conjunction with the superpower of the world and Britain, are waging information war on me. I am being subjected to all kinds of extrajudicial methods of torture and punishment for no apparent reason. I am being sanctioned through various means, making it difficult for me to buy specific items internationally. My documentaries on the internet are being censored and prohibited. I'm under high-tech surveillance and subjected to various sorts of electromagnetic weaponry. Finally, my fellow citizens and others are used as proxies against me in a constant effort to set me up to be either imprisoned, institutionalized, or deemed incompetent, as the establishments overtly seek to have me institutionalized and deemed incompetent. There are two sets of objectives, the first being the normalization of the authoritarian initiatives and tactics which have been implemented via the program, which also serves as a demoralization tool towards the public at large through the perpetual fear and emotion-based propaganda which is constantly broadcasting. The normalization of the authoritarian initiatives and tactics consequently allows the establishments to slowly but surely eradicate the individual's civil liberties, human rights and freedoms on the behest of their interests and so-called security. These are the broad implications on the wide scope of the purpose behind the program, which are interests of yours. Secondly, you have the objectives that have to do with me on an individual basis as the pretext for the first set of objectives on the wide scope, as I have stated. Those are foremost having me getting rid of in such a way that the program and its propaganda can continue. This will be possible if they succeed in their mission to have me institutionalized and deemed incompetent. This they are seeking to achieve, as mentioned, using members of the public as proxies to stage and set up problems, which are designed to provoke a reaction from me, which are going to be used as the justification for the institutionalization and so forth. If they do not succeed with their first objective, they have their second fallback objective, which is the death and destruction objective, as they concurrently amplify the torture and extrajudicial punishment in combination with the severe harassment, which is purposely designed to drive me insane, with that malicious intent in mind that they seek and want me to break and explode, taking bystanders with me in the fall, as in committing some gruesome violent act as a desperate act for relief, which they undoubtedly thereafter would use retroactively as the justification for the existence of the program and all that entails. Now you understand why they methodically have deprived and relieved me of my civil liberties, human rights and freedoms in their campaigns against me over the years. Make no mistake, the establishments and their intelligence agencies have done this systematically, with these two objectives in mind. So when I have gone through all the relevant authorities and the court system to resolve a problem which they have caused in all instances, I haven't received anything other than utter contempt from these authorities and even the court system itself. As I have demonstrated and proved in this documentary, they will not only cover up for the Danish government and their intelligence agencies, no, they will actively participate in the worsening of the problem which they are supposed to prohibit or help resolve. So in essence, they are robbing me from any real hope of ever having a chance to stop these injustices and furthermore the political persecution of me, because the legal system and the authorities are green-lighting the extrajudicial campaigns against me. So once again, I have arrived at the bigger picture. I will leave the rest up to you to figure out.